I really love the steps that the pro search is doing. Compare Perplexity and Google for everyday searches. Step 2, evaluate strengths and weaknesses of Perplexity. Evaluate strengths and weaknesses of Google. It's like a procedure.
Yeah.
Complete. Okay, answer. Perplexity AI, while impressive, is not yet a full replacement for Google for everyday searches.
Yes.
Here are the key points based on the provided sources. Strength of Perplexity AI, direct answers, AI-powered summaries, focused search, user experience. We can dig into the details of a lot of these. Weaknesses of Perplexity AI, accuracy and speed. Interesting. I don't know if that's accurate.
Well, Google is faster than Perplexity because you instantly render the links.
The latency is
Yeah,
fast.
it's like you get 300 to 400 milliseconds results.
Interesting.
Here it's like, still not about 1,000 milliseconds here, right?
For simple navigational queries, such as finding a specific website, Google is more efficient and reliable. So if you actually want to get straight to the source.
Yeah, you just want to go to Kayak.
Yeah.
You just want to go fill up a form. Like you want to go pay your credit card dues.
Real-time information. Google excels in providing real-time information like sports score. So while I think Perplexity is trying to integrate real-time, recent information, put priority on recent information, that's like a lot of work to integrate.
Exactly, because that's not just about throwing an LLM. You when you're asking, what dress should I wear out today in Austin? You do want to get the weather across the time of the day, even though you didn't ask for it. And then Google presents this information in cool widgets. And I think that is where this is a very different problem from just building another chatbot. And the information needs to be presented well. And the user intent, for example, if you ask for a stock price, you might even be interested in looking at the historic stock price, even though you never asked for it. You might be interested in today's price. These are the kind of things that you have to build as custom UIs for every query. And why I think this is a hard problem. It's not just the next generation model will solve the previous generation model's problems here. The next generation model will be smarter. You can do these amazing things like planning, query, breaking it down to pieces, collecting information, aggregating from sources, using different tools. Those kind of things you can do. You can keep answering harder and harder queries, but there's still a lot of work to do on the product layer in terms of how the information is best presented to the user and how you think backwards from what the user really wanted and might want as a next step and give it to them before they even ask for it.
But I don't know how much of that is a UI problem of designing custom UIs for a specific set of questions. I think at the end of the day, Wikipedia looking UI is good enough if the raw content that's provided, the text content is powerful. So if I want to know the weather in Austin, if it gives me 5 little pieces of information around that, maybe the weather today and maybe other links to say, do you want hourly? And maybe it gives a little extra information about rain and temperature, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But you would like the product when you ask for weather, let's say it localizes you to Austin automatically and not just tell you it's hot, not just tell you it's humid, but also tells you what to wear. You didn't ask for what to wear, but it would be amazing if the product came and told you what to wear.
How much of that could be made much more powerful with some memory, with some personalization?
A lot more, definitely. I mean, but the personalization, there's an 80-20 here. The 80-20 is achieved with your location, let's say your genre, and then like sites you typically go to, like a rough sense of topics of what you're interested in. All that can already give you a great personalized experience. It doesn't have to have infinite memory, infinite context windows, have access to every single activity you've done. That's an overkill.
Yeah. I mean, humans are creatures of habit. Most of the time we do the same thing. And
yeah, it's first few principal vectors.
First few principal
vectors. First, most important eigenvectors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for reducing humans to that, to the most important eigenvectors. Right. For me, usually I check the weather if I'm going running. So it's important for the system to know that running is an activity that I do.
But
And
also depends on, like, when you run. Like if you're asking in the night, maybe you're not looking for running. But
right. But then that starts to get into details. Really,
yeah,
I never ask at night with the weather
exactly.
because I don't care. So like, usually it's always going to be about running, and even at night it's going to be about running because I love running at night. Let me zoom out once again. Ask a similar, I guess, question that we just asked Perplexity. Can Perplexity take on and beat Google or Bing in search?
So we do not have to beat them. Neither do we have to take them on. In fact, I feel the primary difference of Perplexity from other startups that have explicitly laid out that they're taking on Google is that we never even tried to play Google at their own game. If you're just trying to take on Google by building another Tim Lu Link search engine and with some other differentiation, which could be privacy or no ads or something like that, it's not enough. And it's very hard to make a real difference in just making a better Tim Lu Link search engine than Google, because they've basically nailed this game for like 20 years. So the disruption comes from rethinking the whole UI itself. Why do we need links to be occupying the prominent real estate of the search engine UI? Flip that. In fact, when we first rolled out Perplexity, there was a healthy debate about whether we should still show the link as a side panel or something, because there might be cases where the answer is not good enough, or the answer hallucinates, right? And so people are like, you still have to show the link so that people can still go and click on them and read. They said no. And that was like, okay, then you're going to have like erroneous answers. And sometimes the answer is not even the right UI. I might want to explore. Sure, that's okay. You still go to Google and do that. We are betting on something that will improve over time. The models will get better, smarter, cheaper, more efficient. Our index will get fresher, more up to date contents, more detailed snippets. And all of these, the hallucinations will drop exponentially. Of course, there's still going to be a long tail of hallucinations. Like you can always find some queries that Perplexity is hallucinating on, but it'll get harder and harder to find those queries. And so we made a bet that this technology is going to exponentially improve and get cheaper. And so we would rather take a more dramatic position that the best way to like actually make a dent in the search space is to not try to do what Google does, but try to do something they don't want to do. For them to do this for every single query is a lot of money to be spent because their search volume is so much higher.
So let's maybe talk about the business model of Google.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest ways they make money is by showing ads
Yeah.
as part of the 10 links. So can you maybe explain your understanding of that business model and why that doesn't work for Perplexity?
Yeah. So before I explain the Google AdWords model, uh, let me start with a caveat that the company Google, or called Alphabet, makes money from so many other things. And so just because the ad model is under risk doesn't mean the company is under risk. Um, like, for example, Sundar announced that Google Cloud and YouTube together are on $100 billion annual recurring rate right now. So that alone should qualify Google as a $1 trillion company if you use a 10x multiplier and all that.
Mhm.
So the company is not under any risk, even if the search advertising revenue stops delivering. No, so let me explain the search advertising revenue part next. So the way Google makes money is it has the search engine. It's a great platform. It's the largest real estate of the internet where the most traffic is recorded per day. And there are a bunch of AdWords. You can actually go and look at this product called adwords.google.com,
Mhm.
where you get for certain AdWords what's the search frequency per word. And you are bidding for your link to be ranked as high as possible for searches related to those AdWords. So the amazing thing is any click that you got through that bid, Google tells you that you got it through them. And if you get a good ROI in terms of conversions, like people make more purchases on your site through the Google referral, then you're going to spend more for bidding against that word. And the price for each ad word is based on a bidding system, an auction system. So it's dynamic. So that way, the margins are high.
By the way, it's brilliant. AdWords
It's
is
the
brilliant.
greatest business model in the last 50 years.
It's a great invention. It's a really, really brilliant invention. Everything in the early days of Google, throughout like the first 10 years of Google, they were just firing on all cylinders.
Actually, to be very fair, this model was first conceived by Overture,
Mhm.
and Google innovated a small change in the bidding system, which made it even more mathematically robust. I mean, we can go into the details later, but the main part is that they identified a great idea being done by somebody else and really mapped it well onto like a search platform that was continually growing. And the amazing thing is they benefit from all other advertising done on the internet everywhere else. So you came to know about a brand through traditional CPM advertising. There is just view-based advertising. But then you went to Google to actually make the purchase.
Mhm.
So they still benefit from it. So the brand awareness might have been created somewhere else, but the actual transaction happens through them because of the click. And therefore they get to claim that, you bought the transaction on your site happened through their referral. And then so you end up having to pay for it.
But I'm sure there's also a lot of interesting details about how to make that product great. Like, for example, when I look at the sponsored links that Google provides,
Hmm.
I'm not seeing crappy stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I'm seeing good sponsor. Like, I actually often click on it
Yeah.
because it's usually a really good link. And I don't have this dirty feeling like I'm clicking on a sponsor. And usually in other places, I would have that feeling like a sponsor's trying to trick me
Right.
into.
There's a reason for that. Let's say you're typing shoes and you see the ads. It's usually the good brands that are showing up as sponsored, but it's also because the good brands are the ones who have a lot of money and they pay the most for the corresponding AdWord. And it's more a competition between those brands like Nike, Adidas, Allbirds,
Mhm.
Brooks, are all like Under Armour, all competing with each other for that AdWord. And so it's not like you're going to people overestimate like how important it is to make that one brand decision on the shoe. Like most of the shoes are pretty good at the top level. Um, and and often you buy based on what your friends are wearing and things like that. But Google benefits regardless of how you make your decision.
But it's not obvious to me that that would be the result of the system, of this bidding system. Like, I could see that scammy companies might be able to get to the top through money, just buy their way to the top. There must be other details.
There are ways that Google prevents that by tracking in general how many visits you get,
Mhm.
and also making sure that like if you don't actually rank high on regular search results, but you're just paying for the cost per click,
Mhm.
then you can be downvoted. So there are like many signals. It's not just like one number. I pay super high for that word and I just scam the results. But it can happen if you're like pretty systematic about it. There are people who literally study this,
Mhm.
SEO and SEM, and get a lot of data of like so many different user queries from you know ad blockers and things like that, and then use that to like game their site, use a specific words. It's like a whole industry.
Yeah, it's a whole industry, and parts of that industry that's very data driven, which is where Google sits, is the part that I admire. A lot of
Hmm.
parts of that industry is not data driven, like more traditional,
Hmm.
even like podcast advertisements. They're not very data driven, which I really don't like. So I admire Google's like innovation in AdSense,
Hmm.
that like to make it really data driven, make it so that the ads are not distracting to
Hmm.
the user experience, that they're part of the user experience, and make it enjoyable to the degree that ads can be enjoyable.
Yeah.
But anyway, that the entirety of the system that you just mentioned, there's a huge amount of people that visit Google.
Correct.
There's this giant flow of queries that's happening, and you have to serve all of those links. You have to connect all the pages that have been indexed, and you have to integrate somehow the ads in there,
Yeah.
and showing the things that the ads are shown in a way that maximizes the likelihood that they click on it, but also minimizes the chance that they get pissed off.
Yeah.
from the experience, all of that. That's a fascinating, gigantic system.
It's a lot of constraints, a lot of objective functions simultaneously optimized.
All right. So what do you learn from that, and how is Perplexity different from that and not different from that?
Yeah. So Perplexity makes answer the first party characteristic of the site, right? Instead of links. So the traditional ad unit on a link doesn't need to apply at Perplexity. Maybe that's not a great idea. Maybe the ad unit on a link might be the highest margin business model ever invented. But you also need to remember that for a new business that's trying to like create, as in for a new company that's trying to build its own sustainable business, uh, you don't need to set out to build the greatest business of mankind. You can set out to build a good business and it's still fine. Maybe the long term business model of Perplexity can make us profitable in a good company, but never as profitable in a cash cow as Google was. But you have to remember that that's still okay. Most companies don't even become profitable in their lifetime. Uber only achieved profitability recently, right? So I think the ad unit on Perplexity, whether it exists or doesn't exist, it'll look very different from what Google has. The key thing to remember, though, is there's this quote in the Art of War, like make the weakness of your enemy a strength.
Mhm.
What is the weakness of Google is that any ad unit that's less profitable than a link, or any ad unit that kind of disincentivizes the link click, is not in their interest to like go aggressive on, because it takes money away from something that's higher margins. I'll give you like a more relatable example here. Why did Amazon build like the cloud business before Google did, even though Google had the greatest distributed systems engineers ever, like Jeff Dean and Sanjay, and like built the whole MapReduce thing,
Mhm.
server racks, because cloud was a lower margin business than advertising. There's like literally no reason to go chase something lower margin instead of expanding whatever high margin business you already have. Whereas for Amazon, it's the flip. Retail and e-commerce was actually a negative margin business. So for them, it's like a no-brainer to go pursue something that's actually positive margins and expand it.
So you're just highlighting the pragmatic reality of how companies are run.
Your margin is my opportunity. Whose code is that, by the way? Jeff Bezos. Like he applies it everywhere. Like he applied it to Walmart and
Yeah.
physical brick and mortar stores, because they already have, like, it's a low margin business. Retail is an extremely low margin business. So by being aggressive in like 1 day delivery, 2 day deliveries, burning money, he got market share in e-commerce. And he did the same thing in cloud.
So you think the money that is brought in from ads is just too amazing of a drug to quit for Google?
Right now, yes. But I'm not, that doesn't mean it's the end of the world for them. That's why I'm this is like a very interesting game. And no, there's not going to be like one major loser or anything like that. People always like to understand the world as zero sum games. This is a very complex game, and it may not be zero sum at all. In the sense that the more the business, the revenue of cloud and YouTube grows, the less is the reliance on advertisement revenue, right? And though the margins are lower there, so it's still a problem. And they're a public company. That's public companies has all these problems. Similarly, for Perplexity, there's subscription revenue. So we're not as uh, desperate to go make ad units today, right?
Mhm.
Maybe that's the best model. Like Netflix has cracked something there where there's like a hybrid model of subscription and advertising. And that way, you don't have to really go and compromise user experience and truthful, accurate answers at the cost of having a sustainable business. So the long term future is unclear, but it's very interesting.